Hey everyone, I am thrilled to tell you about the guest speaker that I have on in this episode. Her name is Kristine Berry, and a notable fact about Kristine is that she is a graduate of our dental hygiene program at NHTI. So I was very excited to speak with Kristine and get to know her journey through the dental hygiene program. She is an inclusive leader, coach, and trainer, and her target is to help organizations and individuals foster sustainable success by leveraging the power of cultural diversity. In this episode, her and I take a deep dive into bias and how implicit and explicit bias can really impact how we manage and care for our patients and some of the obstacles that we might create without even being aware of this. Kristine is continually contributing to the conversation, both on LinkedIn, nationally, internationally, and she has her own coaching business that helps organizations improve in these areas. Her mission is to unleash the potential of diverse teams, enhance their performance, creativity, and innovation, and address oral health disparities and inequities. So, who would not want to have a conversation with Kristine? I was so excited. And I hope that this helps get you thinking in the direction of taking a good look inside at yourself so that you can notice changes, even small changes that you can make to meet the patients where they're at. I hope this helps you. Hey, are you in dental hygiene school or just got your acceptance letter and just started dental hygiene school and you're worried about how you're going to fit it all in, what the evaluations are like, what the key strategies you need to set up in order to be successful? You don't want to have worked all this time to get accepted into dental hygiene school only to make some pretty major errors in your first and second semester. I've put together a course that will really help you set yourself straight right out of the gate and get yourself started on the right foot in dental hygiene school. Whether or not you're just entering school or you've done your prerequisites and you're just well on your way halfway through, this course is designed to help get you straight and keep you straight so that you can become a dental hygienist. Click the link in the show notes and check it out. Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy Flosser podcast. My name is Billy Lunt. I am your host, and I am here to talk to you about all things dental hygiene to support you on your journey through the dental hygiene program. Welcome, so glad to have you. So I have Kristine Berry with me today, and I'm so excited to talk to you, Kristine. And the fact that you are an NHTI alumni just makes it warms my heart, right? So one of our own. I love that. And Kristine comes to us from she's a dental hygienist. She has a totally different career path. So I'm so excited to hear first, we can start just by saying, introduce yourself, and you can talk about your journey and how and why you ended up where you're at.
Yeah. So thank you so much for inviting me. And this was such a fun way to connect with someone who is now an educator at the school that I went to hygiene with. And I do have to have a shout out to my sister who graduated there first, like in the 70s.
Wow.
From dental hygiene. So there's my older sister was a hygienist as well. That was her first career, and then I seemed to like it when she was going through it, and when I was in high school. So I graduated. I'm going to share some dates just to kind of put the context around. So I graduated in '84 from high school. And then I worked for 2 years as a dental assistant, so preceptorship trained dental assistant in New Hampshire, and then had the bug to go back to dental hygiene school to go to dental hygiene school, mostly because I couldn't hack it as an assistant. I kept on running over the doctor's toe. I couldn't keep up with him or her. I mean, it was a him, and I'm just like, I love the fact that my sister worked in more of an isolated, controlled environment. It was based on her. So all those dental assistants out there, shout out to you and props because I couldn't do it. So went to hygiene school and graduated there in '88 from the tech. So and from there, it's been quite a journey as from an experience standpoint.
Yeah. Well, how did you go from graduating from NHTI to what you're doing now? That
Yeah.
there had to be some forks in your road.
Yeah, another just what comes to mind, I haven't thought, I have to shout out to, Cheryl Dorfman, Professor Dorfman, when she was teaching. I can't remember the name of the class, but it was about, and you could probably help me with that, more about community. And, she started talking about the American Dental Hygienist Association. We had the Student Dental Hygienist Association when I was, in school. And so I wanted to become an officer of SADA. And actually, I wanted to be president. And my classmates did not vote me in as
Oh,
president. They voted someone else in because, believe it or not, they didn't think I was serious enough about the profession. I was young. I mean, I was younger than some of the other students in the class. We had some returning students from like second career coming in for dental hygiene back then. So I didn't get to become a president, but I'm still here. And so from there, I just think I got a taste for, or just didn't like someone telling me no. So when I graduated hygiene school, I got involved in the New Hampshire State Dental Hygiene Association, which was one of the best things I ever did. Started off as the editor of their newsletter. And that was back in the day when it was a print version and we had to get quotes for printing. And I was sitting in my living room, with 300 or 500, it's probably only 300 back then, New Hampshire newsletters, folding them up, mailing them, bringing them to the mail center, and just wanted to get involved with hygiene anyway I could. And it was a great opportunity just to start to learn. And with that, I was able to finally get to be president of the New Hampshire Dental Hygiene Association. And then just the added growth that ADHA provides, which was fantastic. I'm not sure what's it called now, but the leadership seminar, that it was called COW back then, Constituent Officer Workshop. I think it's called something a little bit more sexy now. But flying out to Chicago and just meeting other presidents in the state, other states, was just so eye-opening. And just
mm,
finding out I mean, now, I mean, this was before anesthesia, right? So only the West Coast, it was like the separation between the Mississippi line or the river, what we could do on the East Coast and what the hygienists could do on the West Coast. And it's like, what? You've been doing that for 20 years back then? And we can't even do anything. So it was just very, very eye-opening, that one.
yeah, we've made a lot of progress since then,
Yeah,
actually. So,
yeah,
yeah.
we have.
So, one of the things that you and I talked about, which I'm so happy that you're here to talk about to our students, is bias, right? Implicit bias
Yeah,
and what that role is as a dental provider and what we need to be mindful of. And it's kind of an area of expertise for you, right?
yeah. Yeah, well, I'm learning as much as possible. So, and to be totally honest, growing up in New Hampshire, it was pretty much a white ethnic environment, right? So I didn't have a lot of diversity from a visual standpoint, a visible standpoint from people of color. And so my goal or career ambitions was always, woman hear me roar, right? So I was always advancing women, and we, obviously hygiene is still 98% or 97%, females, right? Now and back then. So everything that I was doing, I felt like I was, even when I went into sales, because I used to work in sales with Oral B, and being a hygienist, going into the business aspect of it, it was just always bumping up against the patriarchy, right? Or just the males were in that era, were there versus females. And what I realized though, and I will say it was COVID and the killing of George Floyd, and just kind of some self-reflection, personal losing my own parents during COVID. So a lot of stuff kind of came together. And I realized my experience in dental hygiene and dentistry isn't everyone else's, right? So my lens of what I experience is different based on the shoes and the color and who I am when I was walking through the world. And so just beginning to learn about, different, and it's was my ignorance there. It just felt, when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, not everyone had this experience because, I'm a white woman in New Hampshire, doing, practicing dental hygiene. So looking at the biases from and starting to learn and speak to different people from different walks of life, realizing that, wait a minute, I didn't experience that. I didn't have that, or I didn't think that way. So I just dived into a lot more of what bias was about. And the beauty of it is, if you're breathing, you have biases. And it's not good or bad. It's not that judgment. It's just, it is what it is. But as professionals, we can talk about it, we can learn about it, because not only does it influence who we are with each other within our own profession, but who we are with our patients and how we view patients when they're walking in the door. And really, it was like the biggest thing for me, and it's probably not done hopefully as much now, but when well, hopefully huddles are, we may have a huddle, or you're doing your chart audit, or you're reviewing your patient records right before you see your patients. And so I just remember vividly going through the patients of the day, and everyone had a comment about that patient, whether, oh, they're not going to show up on time because they're X, or they're probably not going to accept that treatment because they're Y, or, and it could have been their physical ability, or maybe they were a Medicaid patient, maybe they were self-pay, maybe they had said no in the past, right? And so there was all these biases and these judgments and these assumptions about our patients before they even walked in the door. And it's like, well, wait a minute, we're not even giving them a chance. They're not the same people they were 3 and 6 months ago when I saw them in my schedule, and I'm certainly not the same person. So that type of awareness, saying, I'll speak for myself. I just kind of shut myself down and put every patient in a box, saying, well, they never accepted full mouth series before. Well, they're not going to accept it now. Versus looking at it's like, what can I do differently? What can I engage in differently? How can I use some type of triggers to get them more involved in their own care, so they'll say yes to their own treatment, versus me trying to force the care that I think and I just did the air quotes, but that I think that they should have, versus really meeting the patient where they are. And the students now are more exposed to that than we were. And I just think that's like motivational interviewing. I mean, that just wasn't there. And now that you can just really dive in to learn about that, and really kind of meeting the patient is one tool you can use to help, combat bias. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, you pointed out some really good obvious ways to identify it for sure.
Mhm.
How do we as clinicians take a moment when that's happening and kind of retract back a little bit so that we can be that person that that patient needs in that moment?
Right, right. We have to acknowledge there's two different types of bias. There's an explicit bias that it's that you're aware of. So an explicit bias, a very easy example is, I'm still a New England Patriots fan, right? So my bias is towards the Patriots in New England football. I I know that, and that's explicit, right? I'll wear the T-shirt, and that's what I project out there. And so we all have those type of biases. You may have a bias what type of ice cream you like, right? Or what type of instrument you want to use, right? Or if you're temping, what type of office you may want to temp in, right? So that's all we're very open about those biases. And it's great because we can have that conversation with someone else. The implicit ones is the ones that we're not aware, right? And they're the ones that we may not pay attention to. They're the ones that a patient will come into your office or come into your operatory, and you all of a sudden just feel like, I'm not comfortable, or they maybe have a tattoo, or a nose ring or a tongue ring, or their clothes aren't something that you think is acceptable or they should be wearing. And so you get these little triggers within you. And from there, we start to form our own judgments about whether, again, it's the easiest thing to do is whether or not they're going to accept treatment, right? If I'm going, whether or not they're going to really value brushing their teeth, because I've already assumed, I made the assumption, and I know what we should do when we assume, but I already presumed that they're not going to, because they had in the past, they're not going to do it now. And so when we start to get those little triggers, that's the beauty, that's the key, that maybe not right then in the moment because we're practicing or we're seeing patients and we have to live in reality, but either make a note or mental note, great, but my brain's a sieve, I can't remember anything, but jot it down on a piece of paper and say, why did Mrs. Jones, I'll use that, I apologize anyone has last name Jones, but why did Mrs. Jones trigger something inside me? And that is the way we can start to explore and ask ourselves questions. Where did that come from? Is it something that I really believe about this particular patient or this particular situation? Or was it someone else's voice in my brain? Was it the grandmother who was, in the rocking chair on a Sunday afternoon around, around the dinner table, and that was her views, and I'm just kind of perpetuating those. So it's really kind of interesting, and I use patience a lot because when I'm working with offices right now around culture, it still comes up that we still have in a lot of us in dentistry, we still have these assumptions and these negative stories around someone who may be on Medicaid or Medicare or may not have insurance or has to pay in cash because they don't have they don't have they don't have dental insurance like a Delta Dental or something that we perceive that is more traditional, or we can send it a pre-auth for. And so we change our treatment plans. We change what we think that they're going to listen to or accept, and that doesn't allow for us to really find out what's going on in that person's life. So, yeah, that was a lot. I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, that's really good. Well, you touched on a lot for sure. But isn't it interesting that sometimes we may change a treatment plan on a patient without even really recognizing in our own mind that we're doing all of these things, so almost on the
Yeah.
subconscious level.
Yeah, and it's funny. A lot of it has to do right now. A lot of the research that's coming out in dentistry or in medical on implicit bias or oral health equity. So if anyone's interested, that's implicit bias in dentistry, oral health equity. There's some great information out there now. But what it happens is now it's an interesting study that was done with the unconscious. It's about a lot of it has to do with race, right? So we're having a lot of conversation where it's 2024, our country that has a lot of division on just the color of someone's skin, which we have to remember that race is a social construct that we white people made up. We are 99.9% the same. So it's just a different pigmentation of your skin or your hair color, and so we're all the same. So the racial divide is something that, again, it's just a social construct that's fallacy that we have to challenge. And so what happened in this particular research, which I found it fascinating, so it was involved dentists, so 57 dentists were given a scenario, a clinical scenario, in combination with patients' photos, as well as radiographs. And the photos were depicted, so they separated. So we had basically black and white patients. The symptoms were the same, the clinical notes were the same, right? But just the difference was the actual, the headshot of the patients. And what it came out to be, which is astonishing, that the recommendation for root canal treatment was more prevalent in the white patient, the white population, than in the Black population. So of these 57 dentists, exact same treatment plans. And so white people received root canal therapy and, crown and bridge or build up or whatever that would be. But just because of the color of someone's skin, they got more extractions. They got the diagnosis, oh, that tooth cannot be saved, let's extract it. And I can follow up and I can give you some, or someone can reach out to me as far as with the institution that was done. But it was flabbergasting when you start to dig through the research as far as, and it's not popular research, so you really have to look at certain institutions and I say institutions meaning like academic institutions who are really looking at that and trying to break those barriers. So just in that small little sample, it's like, am I treating that patient the same way every time, when someone comes in? If you have a diverse type of population, do you have the patience to slow down enough to speak to someone in a different language that's not your own? Speaking of English, right? And I'm saying this myself, sometimes I got so frustrated with that they couldn't understand me. So I would equate that to ignorance. They're trying to process things in a different way. Their mental models and their way of thinking is completely different from me. So get off my high horse and let's just talk to a patient. Or now there's amazing interpreter that you can get off of Amazon that it will interpret the language for you. So when someone is, for me, it's Spanish that I'm thinking of in this particular situation, I just was able to, it was helped me to change the dialect from my English to Spanish so she was able to understand me a lot more versus having to have an interpreter. So it's just those small things helped her make her feel comfortable and, more successful in saying yes to the treatment that she needed, So
Yeah, because she felt connected because
yeah,
you were
yeah, she felt heard.
bridging.
She didn't have to go through, because again, I'm thinking I've been doing this for almost 40 years, right? So back in the day, someone had to come in with the patient. So as most likely it was their child, right? Because the child would be more bilingual than the adult. And that's not the triangle that you want to have. You have to speak to a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old about a serious condition about the mom. I mean, that type of dynamic is difficult anyway. So being able just to speak to someone or have it interpreted through, AI or through this technology now is really benefit. And if someone does not have that, that's something that you should definitely look into for their practices.
Oh, very interesting. You make a lot of good points, Kristine. I feel like you're bringing compassion back to the operatory through a different lens, in a way that
Yeah,
we maybe haven't thought about before. And I think
yeah,
that's great. I don't
it
know
is
how you got from a New Hampshire hygienist. And what was your maiden name
funny.
when?
Oh, so for my New Hampshire, my maiden, so I've been married twice, second marriage, this one. So when I was married as a baby, and I got married a year after hygiene school. So my original name, or my first married name, was Hodston, Hodsdon. So when I was in like New Hampshire Dental Hygiene Association, when I was starting to do my lecturing, when I was starting to do my writing, and really my break came, I was in sales. So I was in sales with Oral B for about 6 years. It was Oral B back then. Then it went to Crest, purchase, Crest. No, it was Oral B. Gillette purchased it, and then Crest. So that's
Yeah.
how long I've been around. But I used to, in the New England area, have the little detail bag and go and knock on, go into the offices. This is when they allowed you to come into offices. Now they don't really want you to come into offices, but back then, and did live lunch and learns, and sold toothbrushes and fluorides, and that was a wonderful experience. And then it was Penwell Publication, which is now Endeavor. So RDH Magazine was starting it just seems so archaic now, but they were starting the RDHE Village, and they were looking for an editor. And I had been speaking with them. I had speaking for them on certain of their conventions. RDH under one roof was not a thing at this point in time. It was just happening about a year or so later. So that's been about 20 years ago, 22 years ago. I was one of the first speakers at that. So that was fantastic. So it was really that type of involvement in the editorial aspect of it, and writing and getting published and speaking, that launched the career into a lot of different aspects. And the more I was exposed to, the more I realized I didn't know. I just didn't know about, like you said, about humanity, or about compassion, or about, oh my gosh, there's a whole another association of Black hygienists that I didn't even know about. I mean, like, how stupid am I? You just feel so ignorant, walking around sometimes, and in not knowing other people's experiences. And I don't want to be caught doing that again.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the more I learn about a topic, the more I realize I need to learn more, because you realize that you just don't know.
Yeah,
And to your point, I think that's why this is such a great conversation, because in New Hampshire, our diversity isn't there. We still have mostly female hygienists in the workforce. Like, there's so much more we can do in our profession to strengthen the foundation of it. And these are the conversations that bring things to light in people's minds. I think it's
they're
great.
uncomfortable. They're very uncomfortable, and some people may be triggered by some of the things that I'm saying, or or challenging, or say, "Oh, that's not me." If you ever come and think to yourself, "That's not me," or "I'm not that person," then again, I would really encourage you. I'm a coach by trade. I have my master's degree in executive coaching, to really do some journaling about that. Because as soon as you declare that's not me, yeah, it is you. You got something going on, because we were all brought up with the same construct, right? We were brought up, and dentistry was built on whiteness. It was built on colonialism. It was built on exclusion, all right? Not only certain people could not get care, certain people couldn't deliver care. We're still having those conversations about, career pathways now, But, 100 years ago when the profession began, it was even more, limited. And yeah, when you're looking back to even from a hygiene perspective, from a female, we were allowed in the profession, but were people of color allowed in? Not at the same time white women were allowed in, right? So there's a lot of different aspects of it that we kind of, have to take a look at. And those, again, it's not good or bad. It's this was the structure and the systems that was built, but we can break them. We can deconstruct them. We can create something different. We can challenge, what we have. And so that way we can elevate, each other, but we can elevate for our patients. And it floors me that still, on average, only 50% of the US population goes to the dentist. And we're
Um,
fighting over, territories of our practice acts and what we can or can't do. I mean, there's so many patients out there that need and deserve care because we know the oral systemic link, that's what we should be focusing on. How can we increase access for everyone, and in considering how they can get access to care. So
yeah. Well, and that is the ultimate goal right there. You just struck the nail on the head. I mean, I know that's what wakes me up, that's what gets me going. And it's a bunch of different parts, like, the stuff you're passionate about. There's so many different people in so many different parts, all trying to achieve the same thing, and that is increasing access and meeting all of the needs of all of the population through these conversations and making changes to what we have, what our current model is, and what we need to do to improve it. So I just think it's great that we're talking about it. And it might be controversial to some or triggering to some. And I totally respect and understand that some people might have a hard time.
and other people are going to say, yeah, where have you been? I've been living Black, or I've been living Hispanic, or I've been living Latino for all my whole life. And you're just catching up to my life experience. And so we're all on different journeys. And I think that just being able to acknowledge that, I think that's really, valuable. And ultimately it's for patients. So we can, have more, because I'm still, over even the past 5 years, I've still been in rooms where dentists haven't gotten hired because of their names,
Mm,
that they have a more, they have a name that the practicing doctor would turn to me, because again, being a consultant, would say, well, I don't I don't think that, not even knowing them, not even taking an interview, not, and this is, we're talking about, still we're looking for team members, right? We want quality people. And oh well, I just don't think that they're gonna, speak English enough, for that our patients are gonna, clearly enough for our patients to understand them. And I just said, he grew up 5 miles from the office. I mean that, and so that's a bias, right? So that's an example of, this particular doctor had this bias against this name or this assumption, and that needs to be challenged, right? And we need to look at, even when we have people come in to interview. I mean, you see it all the time. The students. We can't say, well, they should be wearing that to an interview and not that to an interview, and then completely shut them out. No, I was brought up on, this is what we were expected to wear, but not everyone was. Just, are you going to judge some? I mean, I know you get judged by that expression, 30 seconds to make an impression, but we need to challenge that, because it's, what impression is most important? Are they kind? Are they knowledgeable? Do they have the skill set? Do they have the education? Who cares if they have, a blue shirt or a green shirt, or if you don't think that's professional enough?
mhm.
Well, where did that come from? I mean, that's so ridiculous. I mean, professional enough meant I couldn't wear pants when I was in sales. I had to wear a skirt in New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont in the winter. I had to make sales calls in a skirt. That was professional. I had to do those little shoulder things so I could wear suits all the time because I had to keep up with the guys. That was professional. And that's why one of the things I love about the younger, I'm going to say the younger, my kids' generations in their 20s, because they don't have that structure or that thought process that you have to fit yourself into a square because someone said so. Why? Just ask why.
Mm.
So it's interesting. Even, and I was just thinking, I was, even the whole tattoo thing, that it was such a big deal back 15 years ago that officers didn't want to hire anyone with a tattoo or the visible piercing, and how limiting did we not give people a chance for who they are, just because they chose to express a story on their skin, who cares, you know? So of course now that's changed because we wouldn't have anyone in dentistry, right? So I don't know. It's just interesting how it's evolved.
That's a really good example. The tattoos is a great example because that's
Yeah,
changed a lot in my career, right?
yeah, yeah.
So something I ask every guest that comes on is where would you like to see the profession in 5 or 10 years when when you're kind of on the tail end of things and not really thinking much more about hygiene, where would you like to see the profession end up before you're done?
I would love to have hygiene be an independent profession, the dental hygiene profession, right? And I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would like to be able to, and everyone's, similar to the nursing profession, which has always been, we're always parallel to and compared to that. I would love to be able to have more autonomy for what we do and the care that we deliver. Yeah, I would like that. I see obstacles in that, and I don't think it's necessarily, first of all, we have to understand that the people who are in power right now or in charge, they're not going to do it because they have it's fear, or they're comfortable, or they don't want to break the mold. But there needs to be a lot more collaboration within hygienists. And I'm not necessarily saying it has to be the organized associations that are going to do it, because they haven't been able to either. So, and I don't know what that groundswell is going to look like to cause that or to create that. I think we're creating small wins, with like local anesthesia and public health hygienists and in various, states. But just still feel that it's just, like feeding a little baby bird, just keeping us, quiet, when there's can be just so much more that we can do to help the overall well-being of people, of people. So yes, definitely autonomy, definitely independent practice for dental hygiene. I would love to be able to have more people access dental care. There's so much social determinants to health, between, the areas that are, the dental deserts, and they has no access to care. I think that we need to look at what we feel is charity is different. There's so many amazing things out there. Don't get me wrong. But however, the I think the money possibly could go into a system change, as far as, so it's not just this one day of giving away free care. There needs to be something different, and maybe and I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but there has to be somehow this money can be funneled somewhere else, so it can be more consistent care than just, we're coming on February and it's Children's Dental Health Month. So great, let's volunteer. And so I can check the box, and, I did performative, I volunteered, I'm a good person. But yet these people who don't have access to care on a daily basis, what can we do for that? So I don't know how to expand that. Like I said, there has to be a lot of smart people out there, but I know there's money out there for it. You just have to rethink, and the word is for me for it's like deconstruct. Just you got to deconstruct what we've always done and create, and that's what diversity is all about, right? Getting different people at the table, getting creative ideas. Let's saw the juices. Let's leverage everyone's talent so we can, create something new and beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I like that. I do think that that's what probably would have to happen if you want to meet the other half of the population, right? We have to get the preventive services out there, and we have to increase the knowledge and understanding of those benefits of that
Yeah.
preventive model. So, yeah. Well, I like where you want to see it go. I know what hygienists have to learn in school, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And they're
Yeah.
perfectly capable of having a solid foundation to start their careers. But if we have, like you said, to parallel nursing, if we have different levels and still have a preventive model, hygienists work under a preventive model independently and refer to that surgical model, it would open up a lot of doors for our communities.
It really would. It really would. And I think that would also it would go a long way to keep people within the profession. I think there's a lot of smart hygienists out there who just get frustrated with hitting their head up against the ceiling, no matter what that ceiling is for them. A lot of hygienists want to be able to expand beyond clinical, and there are amazing opportunities out there. I didn't practice clinical for a good 12 years, and now I'm back in clinical, and I missed it, and I didn't realize I missed it, and I love it. And I love working with patients one-on-one. So that was a huge learning because when I moved from New Hampshire to North Carolina, where I'm living now, I kind of put my hygiene license on hold. In fact, no. And in fact, if anyone's still listening at this point, never give up your hygiene license, because if you do, you are someone like me who had to go back and take the boards again. Critical and written and stupid. I used to tell, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. But I'm like, oh, I'm not going to practice again. I'm doing consulting. I'm all in there. And then I'm like, okay, so that was a treat, 30 years later. But
That's a good tip to give to students.
yeah, always keep your license. Once you get it, keep it, no matter what. And if you can't afford it, call me. I'll work something out. Because you may need it at some point, especially from a female perspective. We were talking about that before. I mean, as far as from being able to, keep your own lights on and take care of yourself. Because if you don't have that self-efficacy and have that income, nothing else is going to come from that, from what you're going to be able to produce in the world. So yeah, that's hygiene is fantastic. And I kind of really, I wasn't temping in the various platforms that are out there. They're all a little overwhelming for my brain, but I'm an older brain. So, but they're beneficial. And I think that, the whole gig economy is going to help hygiene. It's definitely helping us with flexibility, as far as from that standpoint. And again, there's got to be something there that all of us are seeing so much, because we're all temping in so many different offices, and we are more connected on Facebook groups and, listening to podcasts. And so there's got to be a way that we can use our knowledge for some type of power to start changing, things. And why does someone have to work in a operatory or that environment when it's terrible, and they're not giving the standard of care for their patients when everyone's there? There's like 12 hygienists who have been in that same office. Oh yeah, I've been there. So why can't we, somehow change that? So, again, I don't know. I don't have that answer, because someone out there does. Someone younger and wiser can figure all that out.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Kristine, and I think I can sense your passion for the career. I think you chose the right one, and I'm really happy that you're sharing this kind of stuff to bring to light some really important barriers that we have with ourselves, with our patients, with other people in the community, to really help us acknowledge it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good place to stop recording. I would invite you to send me any questions that you need answered. Questions come up when you listen to this podcast. I have a link in the show notes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Also, I would appreciate a review if you have time to leave one. Thank you so much.